We are here today in New York during Climate Week and the UN General Assembly, coming together with CEOs and executives from all walks of life to hear directly from them on how they can help to create sustainable impact through their businesses. According to the 2024 Sustainable Development Report published by the UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network, none of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals are on track to be achieved by 2030. There are also chronic shortfalls in SDG financing, particularly in developing and emerging economies. In this interview, we'll be speaking with Professor Jeffrey Sachs, a world-renowned economist and leader in sustainable development and president of the SDSN. Established in 2012 by Professor Sachs and former UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, the SDSN is the world's largest knowledge network for the SDGs. The SDSN mobilizes the world's leading knowledge institutions to identify and develop global and local solutions for action on the world's most critical sustainable development challenges.
I find that governments are listening, they're hearing, they're thinking, they're making new plans that are actually constructive. So I'm very happy about that.
So how has the UN General Assembly week been going for you?
Oh, it's been packed, but very interesting. Of course, a lot of leaders here and a lot of diplomacy and a lot of tension.
Anything worthy of talking about as far as those face-to-face negotiations making progress in what your goals are?
Well, my goals for them, the diplomats, is that they make peace, which would be nice. So let's see how they do on that.
Yeah, it is hard to find agreement with two people, let alone more than 100. Let's talk about SDSN for a moment. Talk with me about the organization. What are its goals? What are its vision?
Well, the goals of the Sustainable Development Solutions Network are the UN's Sustainable Development Goals. So the SDGs are the globally agreed goals, which were set in 2015. And SDSN, or we call it the UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network, was established in 2012. Then Secretary General Ban Ki-moon and I thought that it would be a good idea, I was serving as his special advisor, to have a global network of universities and think tanks that were working on these global goals. At the time, they were being negotiated. So the first 3 years of our network was what goals should the world adopt. These goals around here are the ones that were eventually adopted, but there was a negotiating process that lasted 3 years. Since 2015, SDSN is now a member institution of 2,000 universities, basically everywhere in the world, and students, young people, faculty, researchers, university presidents want to contribute to achieving these global sustainable development objectives, and that's the purpose of the organization.
I'm curious about your thoughts when it comes to the private sector and the skepticism that is there oftentimes in the private sector towards ESG and kind of the whole push towards sustainability. What are your thoughts about that and how to get past that?
Well, look, I don't know whether businesses are skeptical or not skeptical, but that's important. And we need to have a system in place in which businesses don't pollute or don't destroy the environment. We need to have a system in place in which energy, which we used to get from coal, from oil, and from natural gas, is increasingly brought from wind power, solar power, and other climate-safe energy sources. So I don't know about the business skepticism. What I do know is the reality on the planet, which is we need sustainable development. If we just go on the way we're going, well, everywhere in the world right now, floods, droughts, heat waves, it's been incredibly destabilizing, incredibly dangerous. I think everybody knows it. Something's not right. We're really disrupting the whole planet, so we better get this right.
How do you convince a private sector, let's say if there are some businesses in the private sector that are skeptics about sustainability and the need to change how we are practicing?
Well, I think there are maybe 3 ways. One is to help them understand the science and the evidence, so they are skeptical about that. Second, maybe help them remember that while they are business people, they have children, they have grandchildren, and they should be caring about the future. And the third, and partly if all of that doesn't work because they just want to make money, We need government regulations, we need a plan, we need a system to make the changes that we need. We just can't go on saying, do what you want, it's all fine, because the planet will be destroyed in the process.
How do you think the private sector can be incentivized to invest in sustainable development?
I think the interesting thing is we're in a obviously technological revolution every day. Oh my God, whether it's large language models, chatting to your computer or your phones, all the rest. Those companies are making a lot of money, by the way, or they have a very high market cap as a result of their innovations. Those innovations are often great for sustainable development. They give new solutions. For those who are really complaining because it's a coal company or an oil company, and they say, but we do what we do and that's what we're going to do, they have to know that we have to do something different because the climate really depends on it.
Yeah. What advancements do you think have the most potential for driving sustainable development financing, and why is that important?
Well, the idea for everything that we need to do is to have a kind of a roadmap or a plan of action. So if it's about energy, to go from a fossil fuel-based economy to a zero carbon economy, or we say a decarbonized energy system, what do you need? You need wind, you need solar. In some places it's going to be nuclear, but it can't be oil, gas, and coal the way we do it right now. Each area you need the technological change. AI will play a big role. Digital connectivity for education, for healthcare, for many other things. I work in very poor communities in Africa, places where probably there's not one radiologist who can read imaging or x-rays, maybe within hundreds of miles. But a smartphone now, by the way, can do that. An AI system can do things that a couple of years ago was completely unimaginable. So this is very good news. The idea is figure out what needs to be done, figure out the technologies that can do it, somehow provide the regulation or the incentives or the market signals to say it's that way, it's not that way, and then we can get the job done.
Yeah. How important do you think it is for global cooperation for achieving SDG financing targets, and how can various mechanisms enhance this cooperation?
When it comes to financing, there's one basic problem, which is that rich countries like the United States or countries in Europe have access to finance, especially when governments need to borrow to finance fast rail or to finance some digital connectivity. When a poor country goes, it faces a completely different reality. The credit rating agency says, you're not investment grade. We can't invest in you. You're too risky. And so by the time they sell a bond, what's the interest rate on the bond? It's 12 percentage points or 15 percentage points. My God, trying to develop when you're paying crushing interest rates like that. So the poor countries are trapped. And that's why this week at the United Nations, and in the Pact for the Future, a huge amount of the text is saying, get the global financial architecture, that's what we call it, GFA. Get that right so that poor countries can participate.
How soon, by the way, does that pact actually go into effect where you actually see change happen?
Oh, good question. Well, as far as I'm concerned, we already should be implementing. Yeah. Of course, the world moves less rapidly than that. Sometimes it doesn't move at all. But next year, in the middle of 2025, from June 30th to July 3, there is a global conference called Financing for Development that Spain will host in Madrid. That's when all of these things are supposed to go into effect. Not just another talking shop, but this is agreed, this is agreed, this is what the banks are going to do, this is the credit rating. It's a lot of work between now and then. That's what I'm going to be spending a lot of my time on, a kind of a sprint to getting these new actions in place.
Switching gears a little bit, geopolitically, how are the U.S. and China positioning themselves geopolitically in terms of sustainability, do you think?
Well, the first thing is that China, around 10 years ago, said, here are the new technologies, we want to lead them, actually, is basically what they said. The U.S. is complaining, wait a minute, you're running ahead of us. But the fact, and the U.S. uses a phrase that China has overcapacity. This is a kind of strange term. It means, oh, China did it, we didn't do it yet. So we're kind of misrepresenting in a little way, complaining, you have overcapacity, we have undercapacity, we need to catch up. So this is part of the story right now. The Biden administration put protectionist barriers on trade with China for a lot of reasons, one of which supposedly is to give our companies time to catch up. Mm-hmm. Now, the U.S. is ahead in certain areas like chip design and so on, this is for sure. Right. But in many other areas, China's ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you think the U.S. has lost ground in the energy transition? Or should this be viewed as a multi-decade kind of process?
Well, the U.S. is doing certain things, but it definitely lost ground in the sense that we got stuck in a debate. Is climate change real? Well, duh. Yes, it is. If any viewers want to know, absolutely, it is absolutely real and it's absolutely dangerous. But we thought it was kind of cute to debate this point. We have politicians that get campaign contributions from oil, gas, coal companies, and so forth. So we have debates that we should not be having. We should be saying, okay, that's the direction of change. We better get ahead of the curve. And we didn't do that for the last 10 years. This is really the truth. China did it, we didn't do it. And we got to catch up.
Professor Sachs, such a pleasure talking with you. Thank you for your time today.
Oh, great to be with you. Thanks a lot.
Chronic shortfalls of SDG financing to developing and emerging economies persist. At their core, the SDGs are an investment agenda, and the current global financial architecture is failing to channel global savings to SDG investments at the needed pace and scale. The UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network says to achieve major SDG breakthroughs by 2030 and beyond, the following needs to happen. Decrease emissions to net zero levels to curb the climate catastrophe and provide financing to vulnerable nations. There also needs to be collaboration and collaborative actions at the global, regional, and local levels by governments, academia, civil society, and business.